Given the president's sagging poll numbers and the fact that he is currently placing behind any Republican opponent, has there been any talk in this White House about a change in strategy or staffing going forward in reflection of those numbers to continue to show him underwater?
No, we're not going to change course at all. Full speed ahead. And when I say full, I mean FOOL. Full speed ahead. Over at the Biden White House. Great to be with you today. I'm Vince Coglianese. This is the Vince Coglianese Show. Coming up, Allie Bradley joins us from News Nation. We'll get an update on the border. That's at 3:30. 4 o'clock, Bobby Barack is here. The man who noticed that the only racism that was happening in that big face paint story coming out of Kansas City was coming from a writer at Deadspin. Bobby breaking that story. We'll chat with him at 4. 5 o'clock, Kyle Seraphin, the FBI whistleblower, joins us. And then at 5:30, Congressman Matt Rosendale on a packed show. Good to be back with you. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. The White House not changing strategy at all, says Karine Jean-Pierre. That can tell you one of two things. Either they think this election is so rigged and they are so guaranteed to win it, they don't even have to do the job, or they don't care. They don't care. In the end, they believe that the media is going to come to the rescue, is going to save them going into those final days of the general election, what we call now election month in the United States of America. The media will come back. They're fine. They can complain now, but they'll be back. That's Ed O'Keefe from CBS who was asking that question. You're not going to change anything? You're not going to change a thing about the way you conduct the nation's business? No. What? It's insane. It's totally insane. It really is. Again, I hope you had a very nice Thanksgiving. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to take the time off, spend it with family. I was down in Florida visiting my parents. And it was funny, on the way back yesterday, we try to schedule the flights at the most affordable possible times, right? So I traveled Tuesday of last week, flying back Monday yesterday, rather than, Wednesday to Sunday. That's probably the most insane time you could possibly travel. And we're coming back, and I was at the airport in Sarasota, Florida yesterday, and I was sitting at my gate, looking out on the tarmac, sitting with my family. We're looking at the tarmac, and I see a couple of black Suburbans go by on the tarmac, led by a police car. And I was thinking, because I'm from Washington, D.C., when you see a chain like that, you think, well, that's a motorcade. That's a VIP. They're dragging somebody important around the tarmac. Who could that possibly be? I had no idea. I just was sitting there thinking, okay, there's some kind of. I thought it was somebody who was being taken to their private flight, some billionaire. I don't know how it works. I'm not precisely sure how you end up with Suburbans on the tarmac, but obviously somebody was entitled to them. And get on the plane, and as we land back in D.C., I was there around, it must have been 11 o'clock in the morning or so. It was exactly the time that Speaker of the House Mike Johnson was at Sarasota yesterday, taking a tour of the airport. I think he was doing some fundraising there for Congressman Vern Buchanan, and they did a presser and everything. So the Speaker of the House was there, and I told that to Corey and Ganamort here, the producer of the Vince Coglianese Show, and he says to me, you can't even get away from it. He's like, no matter where you are, you can't even get away. No, I can't. That's okay. But honestly, it was just this D.C. life that makes you recognize. I guess everyone can recognize a motorcade. That may be not a unique D.C. thing, but I did see it, and I said, that's something. I smell a story going on, and it was right beneath my nose, right outside the window. It was the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. So there he was yesterday. I did see that he was making some signals about how important it is for us to send more money to Ukraine. Did you see this? So during the press conference he did at the airport that I was sitting at, he paid some lip service to, we have to, support Ukraine. Okay. And I know that one of the things that Mike Johnson is doing is conditioning any more aid to Ukraine. If we're going to support their border, we better support our own. And that's all well and good. Whatever you can do to get some border funding for the United States, shore up the border. But is the mandate really that we need to send more money to Ukraine? Have we gotten to, any hold whatsoever on the amount of money that we've wasted in Ukraine? How many lives have been lost by prolonging that war? Have we gotten to the bottom of that? But so before you start paying a bunch of lip service to how important it is to send a bunch of money to Ukraine, maybe get a hold of that whole story first, right? Right? So this is one of those tests. We talk about Speaker Mike Johnson and what it means to be the Speaker of the House and how long he's going to have that job. We're all paying attention, Mr. Speaker. We all like to see you succeed. You seem like a really good man. Just have the intestinal fortitude to stand up to these idiots all around you, all the special interests, all the all the people who are trying to prioritize things that are not in the domestic priority. Don't listen to them. Focus. Be the guy who came up as just Congressman Mike Johnson. He had a lot of good things to say. He believed in a lot of good things. And I hope he can live that out as Speaker. I really do. We were at an event recently out at the Trump National Golf Club. And we were raising some money for a documentary called American Anarchy. And while we were there, I ran into a listener, and a great guy, and he asked me about Israel. He said all this coverage of Israel that he's hearing, and he was saying that whether it's just the radio coverage or the way our leaders talk about all of this, he was wishing that there was the same sort of energy for domestic issues, right? Just what is happening to the United States of America? How much suffering is going on here? And how come I'm not hearing more about that? And I think that's a highly reasonable question. In fact, it's a question I've asked in so many ways. There's so many of these different stories and these tragedies happening, certainly around the planet. And in Israel's case, there's just no question. I mean, the moral lines cannot be any clearer. You have a decent people, a religious people, a people who are highly tolerant of the Palestinian Arabs who live among them, the Muslims who live among them. These are not the bad guys in this equation. On October 7th, they were attacked in a merciless terror attack. And then they responded. They've responded by trying to take out Hamas and to get hostages back. And my God, this trade deal they got going on right now is not... Who thought this was a good idea? I'm sure the Israelis are very grateful that they're getting their people back. They must be. Those families, I just see the images of these families getting these hostages back. But the trade that they're making has been driving me crazy all week. I haven't been on radio to say this, but 3 criminal terrorists for every 1 innocent hostage. What is the lesson Hamas derives from this? How many times do we have to see this happen with Iranian-backed terrorism, where they realize that hostage-taking is the answer to their goals? They take hostages, they get what they want. They take hostages, they get billions of dollars. They take hostages, they get their terrorists back. You saw the image of a woman, the media was covering, one of the women who is a terrorist in Israeli custody, who was handed over to Hamas in exchange. She was one of 3, handed over in exchange for an innocent Israeli. The media is describing her as a disfigured Palestinian Arab woman. That's all they say. Israel handing back a disfigured Palestinian woman to Hamas. They don't tell you that the reason she's disfigured is because she tried to blow up a bomb. It was a terror attack she was conducting that disfigured her. She disfigured herself. And so the media lie about this. Anyway, going back to the point, this listener asked me recently about, why don't we see the same intensity that we see with Israel? And that is the point, isn't it? That is the point. We get a lot of these leaders, man. Leaders is a very generous term, but basically people who are in positions of power. They are so aggressive and so morally righteous and so in front of the microphone, and they've got all these speeches to give about all these other places, to include Ukraine and certainly for Israel. And again, Israel deserves support. Israel's a good ally, great ally. Israel hasn't. Did you know that Ukraine has received more money now than we've given Israel over the entirety of our aid to Israel? Did you know that? Yeah, we've given more to Ukraine already. Israel doesn't have a reputation for stealing our money. Ukraine does. Totally corrupt. But it's true, though. It drives you crazy. It really drives you crazy. Because you look at what's happening on our border right now. We're going to talk with Allie Bradley coming up here. Border Patrol agents no longer can do training for their jobs. In the Tucson sector, they've decided to end training exercises. No more training. Why? Because they don't have enough people to handle the invasion. We have an invasion on our southern border. And that is the word for it. What do you call it when millions of foreign nationals pour into your country and there's not just a failure to stop them. They're assisted in by the United States government. They're assisted in by federal tax dollars. Against your will, by the way. volunteer your paycheck for this role, but now your paycheck is involved in human trafficking, I hate to tell you. And so my answer to this listener was, and it is now, and it has been, that I'm perfectly content with an intensity from people in positions of power when it comes to standing up for Israel. That's fine. All I'm asking you, the bare minimum, is that you use the same aggression and effort and time and energy on domestic problems. We had a congressman on recently, trying to remember who it was exactly. We had a Republican congressman on recently, and I asked him whether or not they would show video of what is happening on our... It was Congressman Mark Green, thank you, chairman of the Homeland Security Committee. And I was reflecting, when we were chatting, I was reflecting on the fact that, you know, the Israelis have done, to the extent that they can break through all of the anti-Israel, anti-Jewish sentiment in the media. One of the things that they've done, and it's unfortunate that they have to do it, but it is important in order to change some minds among the media, who so many of whom have kind of mindlessly been bopping around and going, I don't know who the bad guy is here. They've been showing the footage of what happened on October 7th to the press. They'll bring members of the media into behind closed doors. They will show footage captured by Hamas, these enthusiastic terrorists who love killing. And I'm not, this is not hyperbole. They love killing Jews. They love it. And they filmed it. They put GoPro cameras on these guys, beheading people with shovels, massacring people, calling home to brag about the number of Jews they just killed, telling their parents, calling them with pride. And so the Israelis very wisely put together video of all of this and said, okay, look, Hamas shot this video. We've got a hold of it. We're going to show it to the press now so they can see the brutality here. And all these members of the press, some of them didn't make it through the video. They were that affected emotionally, psychologically. They couldn't handle. I mean, most people can't. You can't handle. I have to look away when I see these videos of people getting slaughtered. It's like that wasn't meant to be seen. That should not have happened. So I asked Congressman Green, I said, when can members of Congress who were just shown this video, the Israeli footage has come in, the Hamas footage has come in. Members of Congress see the video, they're emotionally affected by it, and right and justifiably so. When are they going to see the video of the rape and the murder and the death and the destruction on our southern border? When are they going to see the video of the human trafficking going on? When are they going to see the effects of the fentanyl in American towns? The people who are lying on the ground in the dirt, face down, like zombies. And if they don't get Narcan to intercept the OD they're going through, they will die. When are members of Congress going to be sat down, and when are they going to see this film? Now, to Congressman Green's credit, in that conversation, he said, that's a great idea. That's a good idea. And I think he said something to the effect of, we'll take it back, we'll consider it. I don't remember him committing to doing something like that explicitly and right away. And we'll have Congressman Green back. But even that component of this, I'll admit, like, I was grateful for that. I was like, thank God somebody will try to do this. And I don't know what traction it may or may not have made since then. But I went later that night, I was thinking about it more, and I said, you know, it sucks that we had to ask. Doesn't it? It sucks that I even had to raise the idea. Why was I sitting here saying something about it? And again, this is not a slight to Congressman Green. And I'll be grateful to have him back to talk about all this, because he's been a great guest many times on all these issues of Homeland Security. But I want Mark Green, and I want all of them, Speaker Johnson, I want everyone to begin with that priority. To wake up in the morning and think to themselves, what is the number one thing I can do to advance the American interest today? And if you're in the minority in Congress, if you don't control enough in order to get a law passed to help things out, and I get it, Republicans only have one house, one half of one branch of government. But you can do something with it, is the point. And throw down the gauntlet every day. The same exact passion, at the very least, that's being given to what's happening in Israel right now. At the very least. In reality, we expect more, actually, for us. for the United States. It doesn't mean we can't help Israel. But every time, especially with Ukraine, every time we hear something from, you bring up domestic issues, and what was the response, right? Like, wait a second, how come you care about their border more than ours? What do people in Washington say to you? We can walk and chew gum at the same time. Really? You can? Because I don't see you doing either well. I don't see you walking. I don't see you chewing. I see you falling flat on your face in all of this. What has our crazy commitment, our over-the-top $100 billion commitment done for Ukraine? How many lives have we saved in Ukraine? How did we bring that war to an end? How not corrupt is that system now? How come there are no good answers to those questions? How come you're not even bothering answering those questions? Yeah, I had a lot to think about on this trip. I'm thankful for our country. I really am. And there's a lot to be optimistic about. I want to talk about that coming up. The left they're consuming themselves, which you kind of always saw coming. But additionally, the American patience for the left's nonsense, it no longer exists. It's collapsing everywhere, and that's a really good sign for America. More details ahead on that. Hey, we do have an invasion on our southern border. It's so crazy. Border Patrol agents in the Tucson sector of Arizona have suspended all training activities due to an overwhelming surge of illegal immigration along that area of the border. That's according to internal agency emails obtained exclusively by the Daily Caller News Foundation. Agents receiving the message yesterday. Welcome back to work, fellas. They were dealing with the surge. They never stop at work. I don't know. Did they even have Thanksgiving off? The border overflowing. They've been trying to deal with the surge of so-called migrants, invaders, who are pouring into the United States. Well, they're calling in reinforcements from around the country. Yeah. Well, what do you need to be trained for? A training's no good in anyway. Remember, the Border Patrol used to be trained to stop people from coming into the country. You can get rid of that. It's not really important. Kind of wasted time now, don't you think? Just how to say hello in 600 languages. That's welcome to America. Coming up, Allie Bradley will give us the latest on our southern border. That's right. Streaming worldwide. Get it right. Welcome back to the Vince Coglianese Show. Bobby Burack is going to be with us at 4 o'clock. Great columnist over at Outkick. He's a journalist, too. He could be a columnist and a journalist. Who's reporting on the insanity of the left and how nobody believes them anymore. Kyle Seraphin will be here at 5 o'clock, the FBI whistleblower. A lot to talk about with him. And Congressman Matt Rosendale is here at 5:30. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. The illegal invasion of our country continues. The Tucson sector is so overwhelmed that the agents can't even do training anymore. They just have to help process people into the country, foreign nationals. Also, I see a report here from Fox's Bill Maluzhin that Tucson, Arizona sector saw just yesterday alone over 2,800 illegal crossings. 2,800 in one sector of Arizona on one day. Thousands upon thousands of people who, of course, are now going to be on the public dole. So it's going to cost you even more money. For more on all of this and what she's seeing in all of her excellent reporting from the border, we're joined now by Allie Bradley. She's a correspondent for News Nation and joins us now. Allie, good to have you with us. Thank you.
Hey, Vince. Thanks for having me.
Allie, are you in Tucson today?
I'm actually in Lukeville. Tucson is a little north of us. This is the Tucson sector, so it covers a big area. Lukeville is where we're seeing the thousands of people cross every day, overnight in this area alone where I'm standing, and you can look at some of my Twitter. I've posted some videos. They saw over 900 people in a single group. Some of the individuals I've been talking to, they've been sitting out here for days because the people down here right now, Vince, are not in federal custody yet. Because as soon as the agents kind of receive them, so to speak, take them into custody, the clock starts ticking. There's a lot of issues down here in the Tucson sector that other areas are not dealing with, and the cartel knows it. One of those issues is back in 2020, a judge actually granted an injunction that basically requires Border Patrol to expedite the processing, get them out of custody as quickly as possible. The Tucson sector customarily has the lowest holding times because The injunction follows accusations surrounding inhumane conditions when these people are in federal custody. So if one thing goes wrong, this injunction could be broken wide open, and it could apply to the entire southern border if a judge wants it to. So these individuals down here cannot even be received yet because the Border Patrol agents cannot process them quickly enough. That is one of the things they're dealing with. They can't get buses out here. They got vans out here that are transporting people by 10 to 12 people at a time. But we have 700 people that are still sitting out here. They're from Ecuador, Guinea, Senegal, Mauritania. Most of them are traveling alone. They kind of make groups over in Mexico. I've asked them, how did you guys get together? And they basically admit that the cartel and the coyotes over there lump them together. They all kind of get in groups of, people from similar countries, and, they all kind of support each other on their journey, and here they are. So some of them tell us they saw the opportunity to come, so they came. And that is the reality down here that they're dealing with. But you mentioned that these agents aren't able to do their training. Firearms training is on hold. Canine training is on hold. Their physical fitness that they do every single day, they cannot do that right now, which I know, wow, Border Patrol can't go to the gym. But, I'll tell you this. The agents I talked to, they say that was the one piece of sanity that we did have. The one thing that kind of allowed us to decompress after everything we're dealing with. So they don't have that anyways. And we know that morale is the lowest it has been ever. And so those are just some of the things that they're up against. And I'm walking through these groups of people, and they're like, how much longer are we going to be sitting here? And I said, I don't know. You could be sitting here for a couple more days.
I'm sorry, but when I hear that, and I feel like, we've been doing this for years now, and you've been doing such great coverage of this, but the idea that people illegally enter the country and then get upset that they're not being processed in more quickly, the degree of entitlement that I hear in that assessment, it drives me crazy. Am I alone in this, Allie?
I don't think you are. There are individuals right now that are trying to get in front of the line. They're trying to get out of this kind of mess faster. They're actually going over to the water coolers to try to cut the line, and Border Patrol is literally like, you have to go back to the back of the line.
Oh my gosh.
Because what you're doing right now is going to cause problems. These people they want to get processed, right? And the reality too, and I hate to put this out there, but they can walk away, Vince. They don't have to stay here, and nobody's going to go after them. We're watching people walk off to go to the restroom and go wherever else, and I go, well, where are they going? And they're like, we don't know. They're not in our custody. They're not legally, we don't have custody of them right now. They can actually walk away and just become gotaways, which we know that's this whole other thing. And a lot of different things are happening down here in the Tucson sector. We have checkpoints closed. We obviously have the port down here that is seeing a reduction. But the I-19 checkpoint is closed, going out of Nogales, where 45 million fentanyl pills were seized, last year coming out of Nogales. We have the checkpoint here on 85 is closed because CBP is doing an all-hands-on-deck posture.
I'm sorry, when you say the checkpoint, I'm sorry, Allie, I just want to make sure people understand, and make sure I understand for that matter. When you say checkpoint, you mean inside of our country, there are various checkpoints to try and vet whether or not there are illegal immigrants being trafficked in. Border Patrol can't even man the inside the country checkpoints anymore.
That is correct. Those both are closed. The main checkpoints coming out of both of these areas that are seeing the influx down here are both unoperational right now. They're inoperable. And again, that's kind of the last line of defense before they get up to, Pima and Pinal County and things like that, where now, those law enforcement individuals are tasked with stopping the load vehicles and things like that. We don't have interior enforcement right now at the southern border because all of those individuals have been pulled. I just drove by the 85 checkpoint. I posted it to my feed. It's closed. So that's the reality down here. And you have a guy over the weekend from the Dominican Republic who went out and stuck boulders and rocks in the middle of the road to stop traffic, and what was his intent? Was it just to get help because there's no cell phone service down here? Or was it to distract agents, causing a car crash, which is what it did? So there's a lot happening down here that a lot of people aren't paying attention to.
No.
But you brought up the number of 2,800 in a single day. Well, in 1 week, it was 15,600. That's a new all-time record. It was almost 15,700. And that is astronomical. When I first started covering this, when the floodgates were open, we were sitting here screaming about 10,000 in a week. And now we're nearing, 16,000. And so that's the reality. And that's why they're taking an all-hands-on-deck posture here, is because they have no choice. It's so remote. They're literally butted up against a truck stop here in Mexico. They're rolling right up in buses, man. They're not even walking. I'm like, how'd you get here? And they're like, oh, we took a plane right to Mexico City, took a bus right from there to here, and right to that truck stop, the Trucadero, right on the other side of the wall here. They're getting out of buses and walking across the street and walking into the country.
Allie, I know our audience knows this. I know people who watch you on News Nation know this, but I do feel like this point is not resonant enough in the American public. The places that these illegal foreign nationals are coming from are not simply South and Central America, as it used to be. You described earlier in this conversation Senegal, Guinea, Liberia, Mauritania. These are African countries. We have an entire ocean that separates this hemisphere, and you've got people coming over and illegally entering the United States through the Mexican border. They're not even flying into the United States. They're flying into, you said, Mexico City, and the cartels are smuggling them. Go ahead.
They're flying into Nicaragua, a lot of them. And then from there, they fly in another, like that. So that's how they're getting from Africa. They're getting into Nicaragua.
Yeah.
Because it's not just a direct flight. There's a lot of hoops you have to jump through. And yeah, it's smuggling operations. You ask them, did you deal with the cartel? And they're like, yeah. You know, every state we crossed through in Mexico, we had to pay the cartel. We had to pay somebody to get here. And so they're flying straight into, Nicaragua. Then from there, they're flying into another country. And they, explained it all to me. I'll be sharing that soon. And then they end up walking across the highway here right into the open doors. The cartel is literally cutting the bollards on this wall and removing them. So the floodgates are closed now, but there are wide open gaps in this wall.
Sorry, the cartels are cutting through our wall.
They're cutting through the U.S. wall, the wall that is built in Lukeville. They are cutting the bollards and removing them, so there are holes in the wall. And that has been happening. I've even reported on a cut bollard when I was down here during the floodgate debacle.
Yeah.
It's very easy for them to take to come through, cut through them. And what's weird is the bollards move. I posted about that. So it seems hard to get through it, but it's real easy. And they've got it down, man. They've got it down to a science, and we're always in a reactionary posture over here. But right now, Texas is pretty much fortified to that degree. I mean, we're seeing Eagle Pass get kind of hammered out there too. But at the end of the day, people are going to take the path of least resistance, right? And when you have Border Patrol so tied up and everybody, it's all hands on deck out here. I mean, the cartel is sitting there. They've always used these areas as their playground to push nefarious things through here. John Maudlin, the chief, testified back in February that 50% of their foot traffic comes through the Tohono O'odham Reservation. He said it's not the good kind. Vince, do you think that traffic stopped now that there's 900 people sitting here that self-surrendered?
Not a chance.
And Border Patrol's busy?
So something I remember from years back, that the Border Patrol's always had to deal with people cutting through wall and fence. But the way they would deal with it is they responded. So after it was cut through, they try and catch people and then eject them from our country. And then they would repair the broken portion of the wall. They would stitch it up. They would make it work again. My guess is that they're now so consumed they can't even attend to all of this wall being cut through.
Well, I'm going to go look for myself and see if that area of the wall has been repaired. But they have repaired some other sections before, and I have been witness to that. But I don't know if they have the manpower. I've not seen the border wall crew out here yet today. So I'll go check it out and see, and I'll report back. Allie,
really at the core of my question is, with the Border Patrol stretched thin as it is, and morale, I think you indicated earlier, as low as it is, what does it mean for retention for that service? Are people quitting the job in light of the fact that they're not actually holding the border?
We already know that Border Patrol has been struggling. We've been reporting that they doubled the hiring incentive. They've cut back on a lot of things. The guys can have beards now. They can have tattoos. They can, use certain recreational drugs. The standard for Border Patrol has been egregiously reworked.
Yes.
Because they can't get people to do the job. And this is what all agents tell me, and people I talk to. It's a generational job for a lot of them. Their uncle did it, their dad did it, somebody in their family did it. And right now, the families aren't telling their kids and their nephews and their nieces to do this. So they don't have a good recruitment rate. Their retention rate is also tough. These guys, a lot of them are up for retirement soon, and that's what they're waiting for because, their pension, they've worked a long time to get that. And so that's why they're still, so-called toeing the line when people are frustrated that they just don't quit. They have a lot on the line. So at the end of the day, they're not getting new recruits in like they want to. I know that their recruitment classes are struggling, and they don't have nearly as many as they used to. And so there's a lot that's going to be happening in the coming years, and whoever wins this election is going to have their hands full in trying to fill a lot of spaces.
I can't help but notice that sounds a lot like what's happening in the military, too. Fewer and fewer legacy applications as people recommended their children maybe try a different career, which is wild. Lastly, Allie Bradley, and thank you for your time as always. You said you've been talking to many of these people who've been coming into the country illegally. Do they indicate to you, I know that we heard some of this early in the Biden administration, do they indicate to you how important it is that Biden is president in order for them to make the decision to make the journey?
I didn't ask them that. I asked them why they came now. And again, what I heard from a woman from Ecuador, who is a content creator who wants to create content here and teach America about her country. She said they saw the opportunity and they took it. So if you can kind of assimilate that to whatever, but I didn't straight up ask them, is it because President Biden is in place? Now, when I was with the caravan, I did hear that. But that wasn't a question I asked today, Vince.
Got it. All right. Well, Allie Bradley over at News Nation, one of the few reporters who's been doggedly covering our border crisis. Allie, thank you as always for your time. Really appreciate that.
Thank you, guys. Be well.
Of course. Yeah, that's Allie Bradley, and you can follow her on Twitter at Allie Bradley TV. I guess it's now known as X, but it's hard to say that. Allie Bradley. Speaking of X, have you seen they're trying to destroy Elon Musk? Like again, the left, aren't they something? They really are something. They no love lost. They just hate this guy. They hate him. Why? Because he decided to buy a platform and allow free speech on it. That's literally the whole thing. And they could dress it up any way they want. They could dress it up any way they want. They've been saying he's bigoted lately. I guarantee you every single one of these critics who's attacking him is way more bigoted than Elon Musk has ever been in his entire life. Like the most deeply intolerant people you'll ever run across. And they're attacking him. And so Elon Musk they've been attacking him as an anti-Semite lately. He just went to Israel over the weekend. He was meeting with the Israelis, and he got to see some of this horrifying footage, and he was talking about the righteousness of the Israeli mission to defend themselves and all of these things. And he got back, and he had a tweet, I think it was earlier today, he was tweeting about, in response to somebody, about how many child predators there are out there. And in fact, there was one who was just arrested in the Pentagon, right? There was a guy who was a part of the Department of Defense education system, which is a kind of a small education system for military families. They operate some of the only federally controlled schools in the entire planet are on these military bases. And a guy who's responsible for managing some component of it, he was just arrested on child predatory behavior. And so I think Elon Musk was drawing some attention to this, and now they're accusing him of being a conspiracy theorist. Again, they want to hurt him. They're trying to drive advertisers away. They want to try and gut him. But so far, he's standing strong in the face of all of it. So God bless him for that. And the reason you can consume news about what's happening on our border from people like Allie Bradley and see it on that platform is because Elon Musk is allowing free speech. So that's a great thing. So thank you for that. And I enthusiastically support him owning that big social media platform and driving the left crazy. Yeah, Fox News with the report. A senior Pentagon official who oversaw federally operated school systems in the Americas, that would be right here in the United States, has been arrested in a Georgia human trafficking sting. The Coweta County Sheriff's Office last week announced the arrests of 26 people, including someone called Stephen Hovanek, the former chief of staff for the Americas Division of the Department of Defense Education Activity, known as DODEA. That's the acronym. I'm familiar with this because I graduated from a DODEA high school in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. I believe they were trying Camp Lejeune for a while. That was how they were referring to it. But either way, Lejeune High School is a DODEA high school in North Carolina. Marines and their kids, the children of Marines go there. And they say that this guy was connected to a human trafficking ring. Hovanek has apparently held the position since 2010. Authorities have charged him, 64, with pandering, a misdemeanor in Georgia, after he allegedly solicited sex in a motel room with an undercover agent, according to Fox 5 Atlanta. Only a misdemeanor? Pandering? Isn't that what our media do? Can they be charged? A lot more questions than answers, but we've always got questions here on the Vince Coglianese Show. Coming up, Bobby Barack joins us as he explains how the half-life on the left's nonsense is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. The American public have had enough. Bobby knows it all too well. He'll join us next.